So I have the good fortune to work closely with our speaker today, Dianna MacDonald, who is Oakmont City Council representative. Her background is impressive, but more important than that is her moral compass and strength in collaborating with others to make good things happen. So I want to tell you a little bit about her experience. She has run a small business in Santa Rosa for 15 years. She's served on major city committees over 3 years on the council, including the Board of Public Utilities, Climate Action, Open Government Community Engagement, Zero Waste, Housing Funds, and currently serves on the Violence Prevention Program and Long-Term Finance and Audit Committees. She served 8 years as a publicly elected school board trustee in Cloverdale. She knows the severity of wildfire and recovery, as the Kincaid fire caused major damage to her home. Dianna served 4 years on the Sonoma County Commission on the Status of Women. She is the past state president for California PTA and served as the legislative advocate. Dianna is the proud mother of 3 boys. She has twin grandsons. She also has some grandchildren, which I think grandmothers are looking younger and younger these days. I also wanted to tell you what her focus was when she ran for election this year and won overwhelmingly. She wants to focus on, in Santa Rosa, increased fire preparedness, and to work to mitigate the impacts of climate change, partner with local businesses for economic success, promote access to housing for a range of incomes, invest in infrastructure and roads, support public safety and keep our streets safe, support for families experiencing homelessness, support school violence prevention efforts to keep students and staff safe, support for parks and recreation, and access to outdoor spaces for all. We're lucky indeed to have such an experienced council representative for Oakmont. Please give a warm welcome to Dianna MacDonald.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right, wonderful. I tend to talk loud. For those who don't know, I'm also hard of hearing. I have 2 hearing aids, so when you ask me a question, I'll just make sure that I can hear what you're asking me. But I have a really text-heavy PowerPoint, which is not my favorite kind of PowerPoint to do because they're very boring. But what I wanted to do more than anything is give you all the information. So this PowerPoint's going to go on the website, and you'll have access to all the information about what we're doing in the city of Santa Rosa with your tax dollars and what we're focused on specifically in District 3. But as Iris said, I have a pretty hefty background in policy and governance. A gentleman earlier asked me, why do I do this? What do you have to give up for doing this? And I said, just my soul. So the truth is, I really feel that public service is a calling for some people. And I was brought up in a home that we did a lot of volunteer work. My mom volunteered a lot with the church that we were involved in as a child. And so it was just always taught to us to be serving others and seeing what you can do to benefit your community and service above self. What do I get from it? I'll tell you at the end of why I continue to do this work, at least for the next 4 years. So I do want to just wholeheartedly thank all of you for your support, for those who voted for me in this last election. I did win it by about 82%. So that's a pretty good margin. So I was feeling pretty confident in that. But for those who didn't vote for me, I don't care. I still won. No, I do care. I actually want to know what I can do to earn your respect and support in the future and how we can work together. And if there was something that made you not want to vote for me, I want to know what that is so I can work harder on your behalf and on behalf of the community. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Here's our 7 different city goals: promote citywide economic development, achieve and maintain fiscal stability, which I think is one of our biggest jobs as stewards of taxpayers' money, create an environment that supports staff and operational excellence, invest in development in our and maintaining the shared infrastructure that we have in the city of Santa Rosa, plan and encourage housing for all, and reduce homelessness, address climate change, and foster a safe, healthy, and inclusive community. So pretty simple, not too lofty, but I will tell you that our work plan to help implement these goals consists of in a PowerPoint of about 50 slides that tells us what we're doing. The work plan has been about 16 pages that usually consists of 85 to 125 different items in the city of Santa Rosa that we're working on your behalf. So the first goal that we have to promote citywide economic development. We just recently adopted a plan that addresses our economic development. We are looking at a deficit in the city, and I'm going to go through some of the budget with you today. But truthfully, we have to do both. We have to see what we're doing for economic development. We can't just look at cuts. And so we're looking at what we can do to retain and attract businesses, what's causing them to leave, what's happening in the downtown. Some of it goes to our housing that's needed in the downtown corridor, what we're going to be doing for infill housing to address some of those issues, but also to stimulate the economy. We're looking at our infrastructure and where we're going to invest the city money. That also does a fair amount to address some of the city impact with our budget. But truthfully, in the work plan, this has been a big focus of ours. We have a new director of planning and economic development, and he has started to go through to see what else we need to do to support our businesses. As a past small business owner, I can tell you each business sort of needs a different hand holding to get them started. I had a heating and air conditioning business. It was a union company. We didn't need a lot of support because we had our structure in place. All I needed to do was pay the city of Santa Rosa for our business license tax. They didn't need to come in and help me get my business started. They didn't need to come in and tell us how to do things. But if I was opening a restaurant, or if I was opening something in the downtown, or I was a different type of business, they may need a different structure. So I tell everybody, because I come from the education field, an individualized education plan, an IEP, we actually need those for businesses, almost a little bit of a different structure to help support our businesses. So that is a big focus of City Council. Second goal, achieve and maintain fiscal stability. A big part of what we were trying to do in this last election season was pass our business license tax. That had not been updated since 1990. That was the year I graduated high school, so it's been a few minutes. So, I tell people nothing's really popular from the 90s, including our policies. So those need to be looked at. We need to be constantly updating things like this. The first draft of that came out, and it was quite shocking to the business community. It was going to cause really a massive impact, specifically on our big box companies, Costco, the Corby Auto Mall. They were going to see a massive impact because of the way our business license tax is structured. So we had to go back. We had to work with the business community. We were able to come to an agreement so they wouldn't go against our initiative to pass a business license tax. And we were able to pass that successfully this year. So that's going to make an impact of about $4 million to address our deficit in this next budget as it comes forward. We were going to start it in 2026, but because we lowered it so much, we're starting it right away in January 2025. In addition to that, we have our occupancy tax that we were able to pass. And that didn't just raise not necessarily our hotels, which it did a little bit, but it also addressed that our short-term rentals were not paying their fair share. So some of those things that we needed to do. For those who are aware, we have limited short-term rentals. I'm not sure if you have them in Oakmont, but in other parts of District 3, which is what we are, they had a lot of them. They have an impact on our community that's not always favorable. The hosted short-term rentals are not our typical problem, but it's the non-hosted ones that were causing some distress and havoc in our neighborhoods. So City Council has put a stop to those and limited those. But we are working to balance our budget, and I'm going to go through some of those slides as being part of that fiscal committee. This has been quite distressing to see that we don't have a balanced budget this year, and we're starting to use some of our reserves. Goal 3, create an environment that supports staff and operational excellence. We are going through the work plan a little bit here, a little bit of an overview. But one of the things we've created are dashboards that now live on our website, and that's getting redone. So if you wanted to know what we're doing in public safety, if you wanted to know what we were doing in capital improvement programs, you're able to go onto the dashboard and see what money is being invested, what plans we're doing, and where we are to achieve those goals. And that's a whole new way of being more communicative to our community. So that's something we've been working on, is how we're doing more two-way communication and letting you know what we're working on in the city. So develop and maintain our shared infrastructure. The city of Santa Rosa has really focused on some really big projects lately. The Hearn Avenue overpass, that hub, is about a $40 million project. It's huge. It'll make a big difference with connecting, our east and west side in the southwest. It's something that's needed to be done. We're looking at a community building. We have a fire station and hopefully a library that's going to go in over in the southwest area. However, we've done some really major projects in the city of Santa Rosa, and what I've seen is a lot of our smaller infrastructure, our streets and roads, the potholes, the ADA issues, those actually have been somewhat neglected because we don't have enough money to do everything. These projects help us get grant money, right? The feds and the state, they love doing big projects. They love to give money towards that. So in some ways, we want to have a mixture of it. The next big project that we're going to be working on is our bike and pedestrian overcross. That's more in the northwest part of town that's going to connect sort of by Cottingtown over to the JC area. That's also a connectivity for bicycles and pedestrians overcrossing to get over there. We see a disconnect in that area as well. That's about a $40 million project as well. We're committed to both of those. We're ready to fund them. But what you've seen lately with our new Director of Transportation and Public Works, with Dan Hennessy, he is focused on getting back to maintaining our infrastructure that we have in place. And I am very much for that. I'm going to tell you what we're going to be doing in Oakmont, hopefully in the next budget season. So that's some of what we're working on, streamlining that process, making sure that our commitments are made and coming in on budget and under budget, hopefully. Plan for and encourage housing for all. Our homeless services and solutions, we're in year 2 of that. We have a strategic plan that addresses homeless services and what we need to do. We're in the middle of a pilot for keeping people housed. We've seen that if we can keep people housed, that's actually a savings to us if there's a way that we can support them versus letting them become homeless because we didn't have that stopgap in place. One of the things we've done on city council is we put a cap on mobile home parks for senior housing so that they can only have an increase of rent of about 4% per year versus what is a standard could be up to 10% because many of the folks that live in our modular home parks are on a very limited income. And that was a protection that city council put in place. We're also looking at a senior overlay plan for those same modular home parks, but the city of Petaluma is dealing with a lawsuit due to that. So we're working hand in hand with their legal department so that we can avoid potential lawsuits. Address climate change. So this has been an ongoing issue. We are all aware of the effects of climate change. Those of us in District 3 probably see it more than anyone because of our fire and our need for fire preparedness, but we are constantly looking at how we can electrify our system. You've seen our city bus that's green, but that really takes a lot of investment in the infrastructure for charging our electric system, what we have in place for that, what we can do when we're renewing our roads to make them more bike and pedestrian friendly. If you notice in the downtown area, there's been some new roads that have kind of become one lane so that we can have those bike lanes. I know it's not as convenient for some of the drivers, but it's really to promote that ability to go more green and to allow for more bike use in the city of Santa Rosa. And our final goal is to foster a safe and healthy and inclusive community. So I am lucky enough, the last 2 years, I've been the chair of the Violence Prevention Program. That is our intervention program for our youth. So we've seen that there was quite an uptick for some time in our youth violence. There were children going on campuses. They were oftentimes gang affiliated. We saw that gangs, with the realignment of how things were working in the law, actually had gangs targeting children as young as 12, 11 years old to get them involved, because if a child that's that young creates, has a crime, they don't get the same type of sentence as an adult. And I think this has been an ongoing issue for how things work in the state, but we've seen a huge uptick in that. And so, many of you are aware of what happened on Montgomery campus. And so we've been working hard to partner with our schools in the city, but also with public safety of what we can do to really kind of save our children as they're getting into these situations that we don't want them to. So we have an outreach team that goes out. We have circle times with kids. And so really trying to do that intervention at the school level. And some people ask, how is this the city's job? And truthfully, as a past school board trustee, I can tell you schools cannot do this work alone. It really does take a community looking out for our children, and it does have an impact on our public safety. If our officers are going to calls at the school or dealing with our youth, then they're not able to prioritize calls for us and traffic stops and the things that we feel that the city should be focused on as well. But that's some of what we've been doing. We've implemented the Safe Tattoo program. We've done our choice grants, which is something that we give out from the city. We adopted a 5-year strategic plan in the violence prevention program. Before, we would give out grants to amazing nonprofits, but not necessarily the ones that were working on the city's strategic plan. So what we've done is shifted who we're giving money to so that it really does focus on the plan that the city has in place. So if it's our money, you should be doing what we feel needs to be done to impact the youth. And so that has all shifted the last couple years. And just for a little bit of back information, whenever we have a new mayor come into play, all of our positions and commissions and committees that we sit on can be shifted around. So Mayor Stapp is actually in the process right now of figuring out how to put 7 of us on different commissions and committees. So as of right now, we don't know where we're going to be, but I think on the 28th, he's going to give us all of our assignments. So we had a couple accomplishments and awards we received this year. We did get the American Bicyclist Award for Santa Rosa. So we are becoming a more bike-friendly community. Howard Park was named Best Park. I don't know if any of you go to Howard Park or if you primarily go to Anna Della Pier or how you connect to Howard Park. But Bennett Valley Golf Course was named Best Golf Course in Sonoma County by our Press Democrat. So some local awards too. Yay! So we received $8.5 million in grants, which is very exciting. I've just listed a couple of them here for all of you. $1 million from our Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District to acquire the Southeast Greenway. I don't know if anyone has been involved in the acquisition, but that's been about a 15, 17-year plan for this amazing group of advocates that have really worked to acquire what we're going to call is the Central Park of Santa Rosa. So we're very, very excited about this. We're excited about the connectivity that we're going to have that will come from all the way over here in through Santa Rosa and down by Farmers Lane. Lots of kids walk to school in that area, which is totally not illegal. They're trespassing right now, but to be able to have that where kids can walk and families can recreate is really our goal. So that's going to be in the planning stages. I think I'll be lucky to see it done by the time I in my council career, but it is something we acquired this year. Congressman Mike Thompson gave us almost $1 million for a real-time crime center, and so I was able to go back to Washington D.C. and help put some of these in place. And Congressman Jared Huffman also has earmarked money for us this year for another project. So we want to thank our congressmen who are representing us. They do have Santa Rosa in mind. So if you do see them, tell them thank you, please. We were able to secure 1.7 million from the Department of Transportation. Those are part of our meetings when we go back and meet with our representatives in DC. And we have a new nonprofit we're working with that we received a grant from to end homelessness or to help prevent it. The infrastructure. So I went through some of this, the Hearn Avenue Hub. It's about a $43 million project. If you've gone over Fountain Grove and down by Coffee Park, you'll see that all of that has been able to be redone from the Tubbs fire. We've been able to focus on getting our 47 acres of the Greenway. I've highlighted those. The Hearn Avenue Hub, like we said, that's an overcrossing that we have invested in. And we did recently adopt a vacant building plan. So have any of you ever heard of like pop-ups in the city? They'll have a pop-up business, they'll have a pop-up chef come in, and we're going to work on some of that to see if we can promote or show a business, how could you run this in the downtown? So we have some things in place. That's a new program that's brought to us, and they've seen that it's very helpful to draw people not into the downtown, but really help support maybe a new business that's trying to get their feet wet to see if this is something they want to do. So we're excited about that. We are addressing our need for housing. In District 3, we have the Mahoan Glen, which is right across from Calistoga Road. That's about 100 places that are going in. That's specific to affordable housing. For those of you that know, we've been working with El Noca, and I'll get into that a little bit. It's not called El Noca any longer. I can't remember the name of it, so I just keep using that one, which they don't appreciate at Burbank. But until I can remember the new name, that's what they get. So Calistoga Road, and I'll show that as one of the future projects, is going to be repaved this next year. That money's been earmarked. We secured a grant, so that road will be completely redone. Here's some of our Oakmont accomplishments specific to you. We actually adopted a brand new development policy statement that was drafted. I know Iris, who's here in the front, who spearheaded that, worked with several other members in 2023 from the Oakmont board to get this in place. The council adopted it to make things easier for all of you to get things done. So Oakmont, you guys really don't need the city of Santa Rosa that much, I'll be honest. You really have it together out here. You need us for public safety, and you need us for some of the infrastructure things. But if you want to put a basketball hoop up or you want to do something, it shouldn't be so difficult to work with us. So really that saved all of you time and money by drafting that plan, bringing it forward to city council and having us approve it. And because you're so organized and mobilized, in my relationship with Iris and Jeff and others that had worked on that, it was pretty easy for me to say yes to that and get a couple of my other council members to stamp on that. So well done to get that through City Council this last year. We have been working with Burbank Housing. As you know, Mr. Gallagher used to own the property where Onoka was going to go. When I first came onto City Council, this was the biggest concern that Oakmont community had. There was a plan to have about 679 homes originally in that space. And after some pretty, how do I want to say this? Strong conversations, I was quite clear that that would probably never happen under my watch. It was just too many homes to put in District 3 in the wildland urban interface in an area that during the fires we were already having a hard time evacuating. So we reduced that down to 279 homes, so about a third of what we had originally had. So that is a huge win, I feel, for Oakmont and for District 3, and I'm very happy that we were able to do that. In addition, when I met Iris, I felt that we needed another exit route. And at first, we were focused on Channel Drive. But most of you know Channel Drive actually caught on fire during this last fire. So we needed to find another space. And I had gone out and done a tour of Oakmont, and I could see that off Stonebridge, there was almost a natural evacuation route that went along where the water, the dog park is, and there's like a water facility that we have for the city as well. And it is actually like a trail that went out right through where Onoka is going to be. So when Burbank came on, I reached out to them, and the OVA board, the city of Santa Rosa, and Burbank all came to an agreement that this would be an evacuation road that will go out through Oakmont, another exit route in case we needed to exit and go out off Montecito. And so we have been working with all of that to get into place, which is, I think, a huge achievement to get Burbank to pay for it, City of Santa Rosa to maintain it, and Oakmont to give some of the land to be able to achieve that for safety for the community. So I'm very, very pleased, and that will be going through as well. We also limited the number of housing, which we talked about. We also have the memory care facility that's going in with Dr. Raj and his wife. And so we've been helping some of those plans along. They had been stalled. And so the doctor had reached out to me, came to a city council meeting, and we've got some of that in place now. And that's moving forward now at a much quicker clip. And then there has been some ADA issues. The city of Santa Rosa only, well, I shouldn't say only, but we have about $1 million to address all the ADA issues in the city of Santa Rosa, the whole city. And it's just, we don't have enough money in our infrastructure. So we have a crew that goes out. We do have higher priorities in the city of Santa Rosa, but there have been some advocacy, and I don't know if Mr. Butcher's here today, but he's worked really hard with our risk management, reached out to me, and we have a plan to address some of these needs that weren't necessarily high up on the priority, but when we go in and do some street work, we're able to then go in and do some ADA work as well. So that's the plan for 2026. Here's our budget overview. You'd see that this is about $213 million that comes in from taxpayer money. In addition to the grants and our enterprise funds, our total budget that City Council is responsible for is just a hair under $500 million. We're about $490 million right now that we have, that we oversee as your council. So this is where the money comes in, and this is where the money goes out. And I think these are great slides for community members to know where we're spending your money and what is the vast majority of the money that we spend your money on. And about 76% of our budget goes to staff and benefits. So if you're looking at our whole budget, that in our general fund, we don't have that much when you're really looking at it. Same with schools, very much they support teachers and staff to do the work so that we could do it on your behalf. This is the scary slide that council was shown. We have a 5-year forecast that shows quite a deficit. And that deficit increased after we had done negotiations with all of our unions to get them up to where all the other jurisdictions were paying them. So it increased our deficit by about $7 million a year. And then, of course, over time, that just grows and grows and grows. So along with the transportation and occupancy tax, the business license tax, some of the cuts that we will be making at the end of this month, we're looking at how we balance the budget. And when I say cuts, it's not necessarily that we're cutting staff, but through natural attrition or some of our temporary staff, we just won't be filling. We've looked at travel budgets and conferences and what we can kind of pull back until we get our budget secured. Anytime you're doing economic investment, it takes a really long time to see the repercussions of those good decisions. It's not something that happens instantly, unfortunately. So I thought it would be interesting to go over some of public safety, some of the things that we feel have been a huge win in public safety. I know that's a major concern for Oakmont, but 80% reduction in homicides. We went from having, I think it was 10 down to 2 last year. And unfortunately, we saw that there has been some homicides already at the beginning of this year. Even if they are family related, we still have to track how those are happening. 55% reduction in shooting events. This is the first time City of Santa Rosa has full staff on public safety for our police department. And so we can see that by having full staff, we're able to reduce some of these other major crimes happening. The 125% increase in ghost gun seizures, that's been a major issue that we have seen in the city of Santa Rosa. How kids are making them are on 3D printers. And so we've been working to seize some of those and get intel of where these are coming from. We see response times going down. That's something we want to see. Homeless related incidents are down by 15%, and I'm going to attribute that to our in response team, which I'll get into a little bit what we're doing. And then, of course, the work that we're doing on violence prevention with our youth. We relaunched our gangs crimes team, which we see has been a huge help with getting guns off of the street and making sure that our youth and that prevention of children getting into gangs is being addressed. And then, of course, like I said before, these 3D printers. Part of me is like, if we could just use your ingenious mind to not do 3D printing for a gun and we could do it for something else. I'm like, who would have thought? But evidently, they can get the plans offline and they program them in and they can literally print out a gun. And so it's terrifying to know what you could do with these 3D printers, but that's what's happening. And in response, is anyone familiar with our in response team? It's our mental health support team. It's a van that goes out. We just increased the hours to 24/7. We had a 15-hour day, but we found that at nighttime, specifically when the services are closed, a lot of times people weren't having the support and intervention they need. So this is a team that goes out. They have licensed therapists. They have somebody who's a paramedic. They address somebody who's having some mental health crisis, and they're able to not only address it then, but then they have a full wraparound service to make sure that they're getting the services they need after that particular crisis. So they deal with all of these issues, but one of the biggest things that they have been able to do is divert calls from law enforcement. So really what we have is the right people going out to address the concern, and our law enforcement then is able to go out and address the concerns of the city. And that's why we're seeing that priority one response time able to go down too, because we have the right people addressing other concerns in the city. So I'm really proud of this. The work that we've done in response is great. That's some of the deficit that you see in the city of Santa Rosa. This program runs us about $4 million a year. The money that we were able to start the program with was part of our ARPA money. That money is going away from the federal government. So that's a big part of the deficit that you see because the city council is so committed to this program. We want to try to figure out how to retain it. We don't want to try to put a program in place to then have to have it go away during budget cuts. And, I always say hope is not a strategy. So we have to figure out how we can strategically keep this program. We are looking at drones as first responders. This is something that I've seen at council conferences where a drone can come out and track when a gunshot has gone off. They can track where a car is going so that our law enforcement is told where to go when we're looking for a suspect. It reduces, from all of us driving around trying to track them. So it's somewhat controversial. There is a meeting. I put down where that's at for you if you have an interest in going. There's information on our SRPD website as well. So fire mitigation and fire preparedness, I reached out to our chief of fire. Of course, with the LA fires happening right now, I think for all of us, it triggers PTSD and some concerns about, well, what are we doing? So it's so heavy in text what we're doing in several slides. I just put the information in there so that you were aware what they're doing on fire mitigation, how we're working with the different areas such as Napa, CAL FIRE for response times, when we see high fire winds, how we increase our staff. We also have, we are looking for some firefighters due to a grant that we received, but we actually are staffed for our fire department. This is some of our vegetation management. One of my favorite things that we are looking at is grazing services where they have sheep or goats come out and graze. I love that program, but it's weirdly expensive because the shepherds are really expensive to have. So sometimes it becomes cost preventative, but I still love that program because it's such a great green way of taking care of our spaces. But defensible space, I had a question come up earlier this week. What are we doing to enforce the defensible space, that 5 feet that's required in code? And I have the answer here from Chief Westhrope. But we have some more regional coordination, working with the water to make sure our reservoirs are all full, making sure that we have our wells and pumps working. And the truth is, the new construction is where we can really enforce that 5 feet because we have somebody that goes out and checks the code to make sure that it is 5 feet away. We simply do not have enough code enforcement to be able to go out and continue to do it. And if they are within that 5 feet, that's not what the policy says, that they have to rip it out. We want to educate people of why they want to rip it out. We want to encourage them to, but we don't have any policy that makes them actually remove if they have some vegetation within that 5 feet. So here's what that policy says for all of you. Those might be aware that we have transportation. We have a new bus that's coming out into Oakmont. I don't know if a lot of people realize that if you call ahead, they'll come pick you up at your home. If you have some mobility issues, can't get to the stop, if you need to be dropped off, it just needs to be pre-planned with our transportation department. So I put the information on the slide so those who might need that, it's there for you. Capital improvement programs, some of the things we're doing. This may or may not impact Oakmont. I know you have your own tennis courts and your own pickleball courts, but Howarth Park tennis courts have really been in need of resurfacing for many, many years. And so we've met with people in the district, and that is due to be taken care of in the next 2025. I think that that estimate's very low. I don't think that's accurate, but that's what came to me from staff. Rincon Valley Park, it's got a major playground expansion that's happening. That's in District 3. And then Peters Springs, which we just saddle right over to District 2, is due to be done. And so if any of you use those parks, those are some of the projects we're doing in District 3. Here's a few more. Calistoga Road, I mentioned that one earlier, and the cost of doing that road. So when it's a complete redo, you can see how much those cost. The Los Alamos sewer trunk project, when we go in and do any water projects, we will often do any street repairs at that time. It will change the prioritization of that due to the water repair that's being done in that area. Backup generators, the Howard Park, that's the true cost of the renovation. That looks more accurate to me to make sure that we are redoing those. The Oakmont treatment plan, the sewer tank trunk relocation, we're looking at doing that out here. And then there's an irrigation pond in Bennett Valley. It will help water things and get that all up to code and where that's supposed to be. And even though it's District 2, some of you may not just play here at Oakmont Golf Course, but go to Bennett Valley as well. So Oakmont specific. I just spoke with staff. This is very exciting. We are looking at cape sealing all of the roads in Oakmont in our next budget cycle. And the reason I bring this to your attention is because people ask me all the time, what is it that you can do? When the budget season comes out, which is budget hearings in May, any support we can have from the OVA and groups of people that say, please approve this budget and the work that's being done on our streets is really helpful. And it doesn't just need to come to me, it needs to go to all of council. When we address this, it's about $8.5 million in work that's going to be done. We'll be able to address some of the ADA concerns in Oakmont specific. So that to me is great. It's going to change the priority list of some of the other ADA issues that are around the city, but really look at what we can do here in Oakmont to address some of those concerns that have been brought forward. So I appreciate those being brought forward to me. We've been able to do some lit crosswalks. We're looking at how do we repair some of the streets. If you went around the city of Santa Rosa, I know some of the streets out here are in need of support, but truthfully, there's some streets in Santa Rosa which are in much worse shape, unfortunately. So I think this is exciting that we were able to get in there. I've been pressing to make sure that it's addressed out here because of safety concerns. And so we were able to get that through. So let's hope it's actually brought forward and you can all be helpful to me by saying this should be a priority. So this is the end of my speech. Why do I do this? The truth is, these are my twin grandsons. And yesterday night, my son and his wife just had my first granddaughter. So I have 3 grandchildren now. People ask me why affordable housing. Well, the truth is, my oldest son and his wife moved to Reading as teachers because it was more affordable for them to be able to move up there and buy a home and have a new car and address their student loan debt. But my grandkids live in Reading now. That's just not acceptable to me. So why is affordable housing important? Well, we need to make sure that we have housing for our teachers and our young families. That's economic growth. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can for open space and parks so that children who live in high density housing have an opportunity to play outside and not drive their parents crazy. This whole thought of how we used to live on big pieces of property with big yards for our kids to just go out and play just doesn't happen anymore. We don't have that space as much in Sonoma County anymore. So the reason I do it is because I was given so many opportunities. I was born and raised in Santa Rosa. I went to Pioneer High School and Pioneer Elementary, and I really have this thought that everybody in our community should be given opportunities just as I was as a small business owner and somebody who raised three gorgeous boys that are now giving me amazing grandchildren. So I love being your city representative. I love being on city council, and I'm really, really happy that I have the opportunity to represent Oakmont. I feel really blessed and lucky to be here with you today. Thank you for all that you do to make our city great. Thank you.
Yes, just to prove how lucky we are. Diana's given us a great report. Are there questions yes, Neil? Oh, here, yes, excuse me.
Please wait for the microphone.
You talked about a new egress point for emergencies. Do you have any idea on timing when that will come to fruition?
I'm going to say that's going to come to fruition when they start the building in Oakmont. They cut the streets. So over in Burbank, sorry, not in Oakmont. So I'm not sure exactly of the timeline, but it will be part of that plan that comes forward.
No, I can add to that it won't be this year. One of the things about Burbank Housing is you realize that their specialty is affordable housing, and 25% of what they're going to be building is affordable. The rest of the houses will be regular houses, kind of like what we have here. They will be doing that emergency road last because that they have to get all kinds of funding from different places for the affordable part. So I would expect it to be 4 or 5 years. I mean, that's just,
That's like lightning in government, by the way, 4 or 5 years.
yeah.
Just so you
So,
know.
I'm just saying, I'm just trying to be realistic. So, yes.
I have two
I-
very quick, no-brainer questions. One, why aren't police officers being put back into middle and high schools to stop the gangs stuff that's going on there? More and more of it seems to be. I don't know the ethnicity of these people, I don't care. But if there's a police officer and they smell something's happening, they can get this up. The second question, has there been a study of parking downtown to eliminate the meters, a la what we do in Sonoma and what we do in Healdsburg? We have a very vibrant, nice, welcoming town. Too many people I've talked to come into Santa Rosa for dinner, get a ticket, ain't coming back. It's a one-time shot and they're gone.
Great question. So the first question was around school resource officers. In the past, we had them at the high schools only. We do some work at the middle schools, but we've never had school resource officers at the middle schools. The truth is, this is the decision of the Santa Rosa City Schools trustees. The city of Santa Rosa has the part in funding if we are to have officers on campus, but it's not the decision of the city to put them on school campuses. That's the decision of the school trustees. So I have been in support of school resource officers. That program will run us $1.7 to $2 million to have in place. So it's got a pretty hefty price tag. The models I've seen is it's a shared responsibility between the schools and the city so that we're not just paying for the officers to be there. However, if we looked at how many responses we're doing on campus, I would always argue we're already on your campus. But to actually have staff that's highly trained to work with youth that's already there, there's been proven good things about that. Some of the research that's been done on school resource officers does actually show that there's been problems in the past. That is not Santa Rosa Police Department, and that is not our data. But if you were to look down in LA or in the South, we've seen targeted to children of color. We've seen some targeted to children with behavioral issues or individual education plans where they have some behavioral. That is not false research. It's actually true research. It's just not our research in our city. But when George Floyd happened, the truth was there was a reaction to that and having police on campus and making sure that children felt safe. But I believe the school board trustees made a knee-jerk reaction versus really seeing what needed to be done to support the kids on campus. I can't be in charge of everything, although I sometimes would like to be. But schools is not something I'm interested in being in charge of anymore. So really it goes back to those school board trustees to make that call. And I think with the new school board in place, we're going to see some different conversations happening. My main goal is making sure we have the highest trained officers responding to work with students and youth. And I can tell you the SROs that are chosen from City of Santa Rosa are the cream of the crop. They're the ones that go through extensive training. What was your second question? Oh, parking downtown. I've tried to raise this one. They say it's a red herring. They say that it's really not deterring people from coming into place. And the truth is that parking is an enterprise district. So they have their own fund in our parking districts where the structure is. And they feel that it's not a deterrent for people. If you email me and you can tell me this is a deterrent, if I get enough people, then I can bring it back to city council. But city council as a whole has not been willing to look at, 3-hour free parking. We've done an hour free parking. If you do get a ticket and you email them, everybody gets one free ticket. I didn't know that either. So if you email them, they will say, we will write one of your tickets off. So please do that. If you get one ticket, they'll give you one free one. So I thought it should be a campaign so that people knew that you could come down there and if that happened. But I don't seem to have the support to bring that back to study if it really is a deterrent. And right now, we just don't have the staff capacity to do it. But I agree with you. I think we should have something where it shows a certain amount of parking for free in the downtown area. So it's a very good idea, in my opinion. I see someone over here and then over here.
Yes, Diana, very impressed. Your presentation was fantastic. I am very concerned about the affordable housing issue. I sold my property management company in May. When I first moved here 14 years ago, the average rent in Oakmont was about $1,800 a month. Now it's creeping up to $3,200 a month. Yeah. Now that's insane. So all of these units that are being built all over Santa Rosa, 20% of those are supposed to be, quote, affordable housing. Can you please tell me the numbers? I mean, how many units have been built? What does that mean in terms of 20%? And what will those new rents be for affordable housing?
Yeah, the way that API works, where it goes to how it's 80-20 and all of those different numbers, I'd need a presentation for all of you. I'm happy to get you the numbers, but we have actually increased how many housing and affordable units we've done massively in the city of Santa Rosa the last few years. I agree with you. The rent has gone up crazy in Sonoma County, and just recently renting even a 2-bedroom apartment in District 3, it's $2,800 a month for an upstairs apartment. Some of the rent and why it's so expensive, I think, over in District 3 is a few different reasons. The cost of our homeowners insurance, even if somebody else owns the home, now their homeowners insurance has doubled or tripled in some cases. So that's a major impact, I think, when you see rent. In District 3 specific, we have the really great schools, so they can command a little bit higher, not specific to Oakmont, but specific to District 3. They can command a higher rent just based on where we live. But as far as what we're doing to streamline the process to continue to have affordable housing, I see that it's not just affordable housing that we need. What we need is middle housing. So that step from that first house or condo so that people can move to the second house, anywhere from that $550,000 to $700,000 range. We have little to no houses in that range, that middle part. And so when we address housing, it can't just be a sole focus on affordable housing because some people won't qualify, like my kids who are teachers. They don't make enough to be able to buy that next big house, but they make too much to be able to qualify for affordable housing. So I think we have a bigger problem in our county and specifically in Santa Rosa. So if you want to email me, I'm happy to get you all the numbers of how many houses, and anyone, if there's not a question I answered and you want to email me after, I can work with staff to on the website, we could do a queue and answer back. I'm sorry, I can't give you the numbers off the top of my head. We just had a presentation done on that from Planning and Economic Development, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't memorize those. I tend to focus on the budget, if you didn't notice that.
We have two more questions, and
Okay.
then anybody who wants to stay after and ask some questions, you can. Here's one.
I've noticed a proliferation of mistletoe destroying some of our local trees. Is there any service or budget that can address this?
So we used to have a tree crew in the city of Santa Rosa, and that's been cut for decades. So, or at least a decade, I think. But we don't have an arborist. We don't have somebody that's coming out and doing tree service. If a tree that is on city property is dying or has an issue, we can come out and address that, but it's almost specific to it. So the answer is no, because we don't have the staff capacity. Specifically in park maintenance, that department went from about 63 people to 23 people. So they've been cut. They never have been made whole again after all those major cuts in 2008. So City Council has been quite committed to looking at services that impact the community. So we look at who's doing the paperwork and who's doing the work out in the community. I have much more interest in who's doing the work in the community and what can we do to streamline the process, to cut bureaucracy and use technology for the paperwork part of it. So that's going to take a shift in the city council and decision making, but the short answer is no. But if you see a specific problem, always feel free to email me. If it's something within our jurisdiction, we can work on it. If it's a permit needed to take down a tree, sometimes I can help with streamlining that process if you're told no. I don't take no that easy. So
My question has to do with the undocumented immigrants in our county and our city. And with the new administration coming in, threatening all kinds of roundups, and I'm wondering what kind of coordination, planning is being done within the city.
So
Excuse me, but we are not, I just want to clarify, I think we are not a sanctuary city, is that right?
we are.
We are.
We have designated ourselves as sanctuary city.
Oh.
Some of what we almost have to be cautious on is how much language we put into place so that we don't not receive federal funding. So unfortunately, we are dealing with an administrator that will reduce funding if he wanted to California specific. It's not just Santa Rosa. This is California specific. The truth is we aren't planning to work with ICE the way that I think ICE would like us to, or the administration would like us to. We don't target, our immigration community and do that kind of work. And the sheriff's department doesn't either. But we have some things in place, that racism is a public health crisis. We have a sanctuary city. We also adopted a resolution in 2018. And just our last meeting, we adopted our federal legislative platform. And in that platform, at the very end, I asked that we add language to protect our immigration population. Our new Councilmember Brand Willis, also added that it is an impact on our community economically because of our agricultural workers and who works here. So we are going to try and do everything we can to make sure that our community members feel safe and protected in the city. And I think having Eddie Alvarez, who's Spanish speaking from Roseland specific, as our vice mayor also helps with that communication. a lot of it's rumors. Right now, we've heard of the raids that are happening. That was not truthful in city of Santa Rosa. I've not had any of those reports given to me, but I think we'll just do our very best to see what we can do to protect our community. I know our law enforcement is not interested in doing the work of others, but really doing what they have to do to, protect our community and the safety of our community. So, my daughter-in-law, she is Hispanic. Her family was immigrants. They are now citizens, but there was a long process to having that done. But I have so much respect for our immigrant population, their work ethics, for what they do to provide food and services in our community. And so as a council member, I'll do whatever I can to protect them.
Okay. All right. We have one more question and then we'll close, but I did want to make a comment on the plan development document that we got approved in 2023 with the help of our city councilwoman. If you don't realize it, Oakmont was founded in 1960s, and our documentation that is in the city is so outdated that like half of the things that are written, more than half of the things written in our documents no longer exist. And what we were trying to do is start improving and updating our documents so that they actually reflect the century we're living in. And because we have new staff down at the city who've never been to Oakmont, and they're looking at these documents from the 1960s and operating from those points of view. So we
And
can,
they weren't born in the 60s even, so
Yeah,
neither
they
was
went to
I.
high
So we
they-
have to update it.
they went to high school a lot later than she did. So it's very important for us to get those updated, and you'll see some other things coming up this year that we have to update other governing documents just so that we can have the right coverage and freedom to do without extra cost the things that we need to do. So the last question is you.
Thank you. I've got one or more questions on most of the slides of the presentation, so we need about 6 more hours because I know other people have those. But I will just focus right now on the ADA stuff planned here in Oakmont. So does that mean that all of our curbs at the corners will have the ramp so I can get down to
Yeah.
the street or up to the sidewalk? And also there are some hazards in the way, like a street lamp that is very difficult to get around.
So we did recently have somebody come and meet with our staff from Oakmont and risk management, and that has gotten back through me and city manager and our assistant city manager that oversees TPW. I don't know all the curbs and all the areas that are going to be addressed when they do the Cape Seal, because that kind of first we do the budget approval and then we do the plan. So I can get more information on that, but as of right now, I'm just hopeful that we're going to get that Cape Seal plan in place, because then some of those ADA issues that you're talking about are going to get addressed. That's the only way to shift the prioritization in the city to have it be specific to Oakmont. Otherwise, it's down on the list. Some of the issues I was also told, if staff actually ends up finishing their projects, they will start to come out and address some of the concerns that have been brought up. So we're in the queue, but that doesn't help with your day-to-day living. So one, I want to apologize that this hasn't been taken care of. It's on my radar, and I will definitely continue to advocate and press staff. And one, please email me and staff to say this has to be addressed. Don't let up on it, because the squeaky wheel does get oiled. So for lack of a better term for you, but yes, we definitely want to make sure that we are addressing those needs. And I have shared with them the need for Oakmont specific to have those because of mobility issues and safety issues. And that, a lot of times we have a vulnerable community. So we want to take care of you.
For those of us who don't know, what is Cape Seal?
Okay.
It was what,
It lasts actually some time. It lasts like 10 to 15 years. It's actually like the slurry seal. It's ugly. And I've told them in District 3, we really care about aesthetics. But the truth is, That's what we can afford. If you saw how much just doing the one road on Calistoga Road would cost us to do the roads all and redo would just be cost prohibitive for the city of Santa Rosa. But to get this first Cape Seal, filling the potholes, that type of thing, is about $8.5 million, $9 million it'll cost us. That doesn't include all the ramps and